Welcome back to Straight Facts on Monday. Hit the like button, get this shared. We're joined again by the brilliant Jamie, the wonderful Alice Talks Football. How are you both?
Yeah, good. I was saying actually the other day when someone asked how I'm doing good now. I don't have to watch Man United play. Like, it actually does improve my mood. I can't lie.
Yeah, well, I'm probably the opposite. I had a good year last year, so most weekends are pretty good. But yeah, it's kind of continuing into summer, fairly good. The Club World Cup starting now, even though it was a bit weird seeing teams play yesterday and the standard of quality, but it was all good. Having a good time.
It was, and we're going to talk about the World Club Cup. We're also touching on Sesko to Arsenal, a big tier one source connected to Sporting, have played down the Gyokeres talks. We're going to be getting the panel's opinion on that situation in its entirety. We're talking Mbeumo to Manchester United. The deal is expected this week. We're looking at Garnacho to Chelsea. Is he the right option for them? We're going to take a look at a few other stories. Plus, anything you guys want us to speak about, get your comments in, your super chats in, and help to dictate the show. That would be great. But I did want to ask about the World Club Cup to start with, actually. What did you both make of it in its opening weekend?
I'm not that interested, to be honest. I know it sounds bad. I'm just not that interested. I watched Soccer Aid instead instead of Athletic PSG. Like, I think it will get more interesting in like the advanced stages. And there's teams like River Plate and Palmeiras that have like Mastantuono and Estabao that are teams that I'd probably want to watch. But I just because it's like post-season, I'm kind of just like CBA with football. I think if Man United were in it, my mindset would be different. But I also think, it's a tournament. And I know like there's no Man United, there's no Liverpool, there's no Barcelona. Obviously, Man United is shite, but Liverpool and Barcelona are good. But like, I just feel like it's missing a bit. It's missing a bit of something. I can't lie.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think as well, it feels weird that the teams are playing in the summer, and usually we associate that with like international friendly or just friendlies. And I think as well, this is probably going to be an issue with it going forward. Is obviously in the Champions League, you have qualifiers. So like the standard of teams is obviously going to be when they're playing the Champions League will be relatively high to be able to at least compete. But you see yesterday with like Auckland and Bayern Munich, like 10-0, like there will be more results like that happening throughout the competition because of the standard of teams that they're in it. They're just from teams from all across the world, which I think kind of puts it down a little bit in terms of people wanting to watch it. So yeah, it does feel a bit weird. And I think, teams like Liverpool, Barcelona, you obviously want to see them there. And they're not because of obviously the way it worked out in terms of the qualifiers, so or the qualification. So yeah, it is a bit weird, but definitely not as interested in it as I probably should be. Football fatigue, maybe. True. There's so much going on all the time. So
there is a lot of football. I think that's part of it. I put a lot of it down to the crowd ain't going to help either. And I got a lot of Americans message me yesterday because I in my group chat I said they should fly some real fans out there, and what I meant is real match going fans. And even to I think our American audiences, it may be something they're conscious of or unconscious of, but the noise of football matches, the atmospheres are very important. And I liken it to, I watch Super Bowl. I don't watch the NFL religiously, but I watch the Super Bowl. Can you imagine the Super Bowl in London? It wouldn't sound or feel the same. There's no way the Brits are going to, when they do sort of little breaks and the crowd like, da-da-da-da-da-da, and the crowd cheers, right? That's so American. But that's part of Super Bowl. It's part of the NBA. It's part of hockey. If it was in England, you get everyone going, shut up, you twats. It wouldn't sound right. I think there's an element of it doesn't sound like a major tournament. And I know that the World Cup will be there, but it will be different because you'll have 50,000 Brits will fly out there for that. You'll have the Spanish fly out, the French fly out, the Germans, the Brazilians will be there. It just feels a little bit pre-season. And that's my big message to FIFA. The football's good. I watched the PSG game. I really liked it. The Porto game last night, again, was really good quality. But it felt like maybe it's because we watched so many preseason tours there. So that's what the sound is like. But it's just from a television fan's perspective. I was watching it and it didn't always feel like a real competitive game, if that makes sense. And I think they've got to address that. But yeah, I think the knockout stages is where it'll become interesting because there's just going to be too many games with one players you don't know, low quality. The Auckland game, which you said, why? I don't mean it horribly. Big up Auckland, but why is a semi-professional? That's the beauty of the FA Cup is you may get a semi-pro team gets to the third round and they get a big tie where you go, oh, well done. this is meant to be the World Club Cup or the Club World Cup. You've got a semi-professional team in it. I can't fathom it. It's meant to be the best of the best. There should be a bar of entry for that, like the Olympics. You may be the fastest man in your country, Jamie, but if you don't reach a certain speed, you can't go to the Olympics still. I just think that they've got to have a bar of entry. Otherwise, it will diminish this idea of it being the best of the best. Personally,
like the reason why competitions are so good to watch is the competitive nature to them. Do you know what I mean? So like they need to bring that to, if they want to obviously make it as big as they possibly can be and get as much eyes on it, they need to make it competitive. If it's not competitive, people will just like, they'll tune in and out, and they'll just, like, even if you win it, people are like, yeah, but like they just choose the teams that go into it. Do you know what I mean? Similar to like when they were talking about the Super Cup, it's just like they were basically just trying to bring all the teams that they wanted into it, but there's no like competitive nature, and that's what makes football so good. Like you need that.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's the sort of Americanization of the sport. And again, I'm not trying to gatekeep to all the Americans watching. More than welcome. It's not even for me to say, but you are, as far as I'm concerned. But in the same way, I would never want there to be a European influence on American sports. Can you imagine trying to get rid of the tailgate parties? That is part of their culture of their sport. And that's how I sometimes view the Americanization or just any part of the world trying to change football. You just it's brilliant how it is. It's the most watched sport in the world for a reason. Don't talk about like halftime shows at the Champions League.
Oh,
no,
so cringe.
Exactly. We don't need that. Keep us as we are, we like what we are, I think, footballing wise. But viewers, give us your opinions. Do you agree? By the way, I want to big up Loki LFC, who has become an official member of the Football Terrace today. So thank you very much indeed for signing up and doing that. It means a great deal to us. This here says, but they are the best in their country. Right. Okay.
But like Celtics, for example, right? Celtic are the best team in Scotland. They still have to go through qualifiers to get into the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? Rangers are the same. Like they're the two best teams. And it just, I'm not saying that they shouldn't get a chance to be able to qualify. It's more a case of if they don't have some type of way to get into it, then, and they just pick the teams from specific countries, then you'll get results like that where the 10-0, like nobody was going to, unless they're Bayern Munich fans, they're probably going to sit down and watch Bayern Munich, Auckland. Do you know what I mean? So there's going to be less eyes on it and be less competitive.
No, I totally agree. I think that we're in this kind of space now where it's almost like people call it gatekeeping, and maybe there is a little bit of that. It's about the quality, and if you're going to let's see what the tournament is like, where there's loads of low quality, low scoring games, or loads of the big teams smashing up all these smaller clubs from smaller footballing nations. I don't see how that helps them improve. You could argue financially. So if they're getting 100 million or 50 million in, if Auckland City are getting the same as what Chelsea get, the same as what City get, that might enable them to become full-time and grow. So there is that argument that's the one element. But at the same time, if this thing doesn't get the viewing figures that they want, if the sponsors don't see a return of investment, and if the sponsors don't want to do it again in 4 years' time, the tournament in itself will die. So you sometimes have to be a little bit more prudent with it. And the opening week, it was good, but equally, I was the same as you, Alice. I had Soccer Aid on at the same time, which I think's. I'd love to see the viewing figures of the Club World Cup yesterday versus Soccer Aid. I think that would be massively intriguing.
I think they'll lie about the viewing figures for the Club World Cup. It looks a bit.
Second.
They're hiding a lot of things. I heard things about hiding seats, so you don't see the empty seats on camera, like changing people's seats. They're not selling out tickets. Apparently, Saudi gave DAZN the money to pay for the rights or something like that as well, because no one wanted to buy for it. And I almost think, is this FIFA's way of maybe Saudi pushing it on them because Saudi want to play more games with European clubs? And I don't know, like. I think it's a bit money, FIFA, and then I think people aren't as interested as they thought they'd be, and it's being like sort of. I feel like they're trying to hide it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I seen there was something like I don't know, I can't remember what game it was. Maybe it was the Inter Miami game, and I think they were struggling to sell tickets. They were going around to a campus at one stage, and they were giving, if you paid $20 for a ticket, you get 4 free. So it's like you buy one, get 4 free.
Did they learn that marketing from Man City? Sounds like Man City marketing.
But then they said like there was a load of seats empty, and then it was 20,000. Now I seen some people that were at the game saying that it was like there was late or something, people couldn't get in, it was traffic or whatever it was. But like they usually announce like the stadiums like later on, if you get me, do you know what I mean? Like near to the end, saying thanks for your support. So I don't know about that, but yeah, I think I'd say what they will do is they always have it in America with the World Cup next year, but I'd say in 4 years' time it'll be in Saudi Arabia, and that's what like they'll bring all those teams to Saudi Arabia and they'll have it there. Do you know what I mean? That could be something that they're going to do, like to bring it around different parts of the world.
Yeah, and it may work. And look, I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to give it a chance. I'm covering some of the games and everything else. It was just, again, as a football fan, and I'm not saying it always has to sound like Europe, because there's been great World Cups in South Africa that had an amazing atmosphere, as an example. So it doesn't just have to be in Europe, but I just thought the atmosphere felt a little bit drab, and that won't help TV viewing figures. And I know that this comment here says they want to extend it to 48 teams in 2029 because many teams are not in the competition. I'd love to see what the criteria is going to be for that. I really, really would. Yeah,
it was the most money. That's what they'll do.
Yeah, it's
they'll want Liverpool and Barcelona, and probably Man United if they're not rubbish for viewing figures as well. Because at the end of the day, 3 of the 5 most watched clubs in the world aren't in the competition. 3 of the 5 clubs that bring the most viewership.
Well, you saw you must have seen the stats over the weekend. As bad as Man United were last season, we were still the most viewed watched team in the Premier League.
I don't know why.
That's a lot of misery for a lot of people.
It is, and of course you'll get salty responsive. That's because all the rivals were tuning in to watch you lose. Look,
full hate watches.
Yeah, a lot of hate watching. What I would say to that is this: if Arsenal fans and City fans and Chelsea fans and whoever else had switched off watching because their team was bad, they're not just going to go, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to interrupt my Sunday lunch to put on United being bad." I saw that, and I'm sure maybe you did as well, but I cover all the teams, and we saw from around February to the end of the season, up until Chelsea had that little run in at the end where they did really well. I could tell not nobody, a large percentage of people just stopped watching football by and large. Even when United were losing, we were getting much lower amounts of people turning up to banter and laugh. And that's because people stopped watching football. But yeah, you're right. They'll want Man United there. They'll want Liverpool there, because that's sort of potentially an extra 100 million people per game they both play around the world watching. And that's massive, because they can sell that to their... But then again, it all depends where we are. Maybe we're in a good space. But if Man United are still crap in 4 years and we get put into this tournament, that makes a mockery of it at the end of the day. As much as I'm a United fan, if you're there and you're not there on merit, it's quite a few Chelsea fans have said that. They're like, yes, we won the Champions League sort of 5 years ago. But they've sort of looked at it as they've not even been in the Champions League for the last couple of years. They've not been in a title race for 8 years, but yet they're at the Club World Cup. And I've got a few mates that are Chelsea fans who go to all the games. And they're like, no, I'm not going to go. They said, I almost feel a bit like being there. So that's them. That won't be every Chelsea fan around the world. But let's see what happens with that one. But viewers, I'd love to get your views. I'd love to get your opinions on that in our comments section below. If you haven't hit the like button yet, get it done. You can also, at the end of the show, check out both Jamie and Alice's channels. Their links are in our description below. So make sure you're supporting the fan channel community. Make sure you get that done. In terms of transfers, I wanted to start off with the situation with Manchester United and Brian and Mbeumo. I'm sure you saw the comments, Alice, over the course of the weekend, all about the interview with Thomas Frank and him going to Tottenham. Did that make you feel more confident as a United fan that it would happen?
Yeah, like I've always actually had some confidence, and this is no disrespect to Tottenham, but it's not Real Madrid coming in for him. It is Tottenham, and Ornstein already said he rejected Tottenham for us. And I think when he rejected Tottenham in the first place, or like, I don't know if he rejected them, but he told Tottenham, Arsenal and Newcastle, Man United was his preference. He would have probably have seen the Thomas Frank Spurs rumours and taken that into consideration as well. So I've always sort of had this kind of confidence we will get Mbeumo. For me, if we don't get Mbeumo, it's because we've decided not to pay up and we've walked away, I think. And I think with, us not being Gyokeres' first choice and the striker market being a bit ridiculous, I think if I'm Manchester United, Cunha guarantees goals and Mbeumo guarantees goals. The striker market's a bit of a mess at the moment, like with the prices. Like Ekitike is great, but he's not an £85 million player. You might as well spend the money on Mbeumo, go do some other business, come back to strikers, because I think if you get 2 goal-scoring players that can go out wide, the need for strikers less. You look at Liverpool, they had Salah and Gakpo. Nunes didn't really show up this season. They played Diaz out of position there a little bit, and they won the league because they had goal scorers. I don't think it has the strikers as has to if we get Mbeumo done. But I feel like his comments made me more confident. But I've always said it's the tier 1 sources keep saying he still wants United. He's willing to wait for United. He hasn't said no to Tottenham. Some of them say, but United's his preference. The tier 1 sources keep saying that, but it's like the tier 3 sources. And because it's like anti-United, it gets lapped up and it gets quote tweeted and everything like, oh, he's pushing towards Tottenham. He might reject Man United. And it's like, well, look, I'm going to believe Ornstein. I'm going to believe Ben Jacobs. I'm going to believe Romano. I'm going to believe The Athletic more than I'm going to believe someone from the Mirror who might be pushing the always leaning towards Tottenham thing. So I'm quite confident we'll get Mbeumo, but I think it could drag on. I felt that with Cunha. We knew that Cunha chose us. And for like a good month, we waited a good month to the here we go after Cunha chose us, and a few people got worried, like we've heard nothing on Cunha, personal terms still haven't been agreed, this or that. I feel like it's the same with Mbeumo. He wants us. There was Champions League clubs in for him. He still wants us, and look, he's willing to wait. I don't know if he'd be willing to wait to August, but he's definitely willing to wait another few weeks. It's possible we miss out, but I think it will be we'd walk away if Tottenham hijack.
What do you make of it from a rival perspective?
Yeah, I'm still thinking that he's leaning towards United. I would say is with the way it's settling now and Thomas Frank going to Spurs, is that I think Brentford might hike the price a little bit or try and get like a bidding war to try and get a little bit more. And I think that's where United might be. I think from United's perspective, I think they have been stuck in a situations, whether that's English tax, United tax, whatever you want to call it, where they have had to pay over the odds for players. And I think they need to move away from that. And I think that's something that they're trying to do. Maybe not paying absolutely astronomical wages for a player or an astronomical fee, one or the other. So I think if the case is that Brentford's trying to start upping the price and they want 70 million rather than say 60, which was what the original quote was, all in, then I think United need to stand firm. But like, we're not paying that. Do you know what I mean? So I think I would still say, based on what he wants, it is United. But obviously, with the way things are now in the transfer market, as Alice said, sometimes there's just so many rumors going around that people will say, oh, well, this journalist said this one that said this. The interesting thing is, and I think it probably is with the tier 1 journalists, there seems to be a bit of, I don't know, conflicting information. Like last week with Verts from like the Liverpool side, Fabrizio Romano said, here we go. And then Ornstein was saying that it wasn't. So I'd be in, like, it's just, it depends on maybe who's their sources are. Do you know what I mean? So, and then I think Ornstein then said like 48 hours later that it was coming, but the money was a lot lower than what Fabrizio Romano quoted. So I think even for the tier 1 journalists, sometimes they're maybe getting different pieces of information. So it's hard to actually see where it's coming from. Do you know what I mean?
It is true. I mean, all the German press are still saying that Wirtz is earning $350 a week. Yet the Athletic have now said, no, it's 200,000 base as an example. And I feel like when you get two very good sources saying very different things, say about the salary, my gut is to always go somewhere in the middle. If that makes sense, because it feels one is pushing it from you could argue that the Germans are saying, well, he's gone to Liverpool. We can see now why he didn't go to Bayern, because look, he's getting $350 a week. You could understand from the English journalist perspective and Liverpool's point of view, no, we're paying 200K. He didn't come for us just for the money. And I think you get that. I feel, though, that when it comes to Man United, and I'm sure Alice will agree, it just feels, for instance, when the news came out from the Portuguese record that Gyokeres rejected us outright, won't come and play for us, that was treated by rivals as the gospel truth. Then yesterday morning, when the same paper said Arsenal were frozen their conversations, don't get your hopes up. That ain't true. We know what the Portuguese press is like. And you sit there and go, hang on. I'm open to all the media. I never disregard any source completely. I'll always bank it and say, okay, well, you've said it. I'll remember that. We'll see what happens later on down the line. And it turns out there was an element of truth to what the Portuguese press has said. Equally, though, things do get lost in translations. I translated that article, and the opening line, when you put it into English, says Arsenal are winning the race to sign the Sporting Shark. Now, you'd never write a sentence like that in England. So you have to sometimes, does it mean rejection or does it mean preference? But how does that word translate into English? And again, when it's your own club, you'll do it. Rivals will never allow that. No, it has to be a rejection. But on Mbeumo, I think it will happen. I'm really, really confident about it. There hasn't been there's one article from Graham Bailey that said people in football are now starting to think his mind's changing. But a lot of the top Spurs journalists have said the signing of Tell is a sign that they're moving on from him. They're pushing a lot harder with Semenyo and others. And I felt all along the way Spurs get Mbeumo is if we walk away from the deal. So if Man United go, do you know what, Brentford, we're not paying the 70 million base you want because you quoted it as 50 million base for about 9 months. Now suddenly you're trying to push it up. If we walk away, then Tottenham will have a chance of getting him, which is why I think there's been a slight backtracking of the news. And you're now hearing he prefers United. His priority is United, but he hasn't outright rejected Tottenham. And funnily enough, we're seeing that with the Gyokeres news as well. That was backtracked within an hour from Fabrizio from he's picked Arsenal to his preference is Arsenal, but he's basically still open to Manchester United, but Arsenal were leading the race. So yeah, I'm confident with Mbeumo coming in personally. I understand why some people are not. I understand why some people are, especially United fans, are really reluctant to kind of get behind the news. But I think there'll be an update on that relatively soon because it just feels when you read it really close.
Yeah. I think as well when you have like similar we're talking about Brentford maybe up in the price. I think Mbeumo might think as well that if Spurs are in and United are obviously offering a contract, he might be able to get a little bit more as well. Like there might be some of that in terms of like, well, Spurs are offering me this package, but I want to come to you. Can you match that? Something like that. I'm not saying that's what he is, but that's just the way some transfers work. Do you know what I mean? When a lot of clubs are in, agents and players will want to get the best package that they can. So yeah, I'd say in the next week to 10 days there will be movement on it. We will hear some more stuff come out. And he probably will lean towards United.
I was speaking to somebody that I trust who sometimes finds out some bits and bobs, and he's just saying, look, United is still confident, because I asked him about it like 2 days ago when all the sort of reports were coming out of Spurs, and he said like there's confidence inside United, but like they're not going to pay 70 million. But I think Brentford, I don't think Spurs would pay 70 million. Like Daniel Levy just spent 30 million on Tell. Is he going to drop 70 million on Mbeumo? I think it's more, I think Man United are happy to do 50 plus 10, 55 plus 5. Brentford wants 60 plus 10. United haven't put in the second bid because Brentford are acting like they want 60 million base, not 60 million in total. And I think it's one of those where I don't see Daniel Levy going in and bidding 70 million for Mbeumo. I think like Brentford are trying to convince Man United that Tottenham will do that. But I think United are smart enough to be like, look, this is what we're offering. And Mbeumo's pushing for the move. And it's just one of those that could take a bit of time. I think worst case, United could push 62.5 so it matches Cunha. But they don't want to pay 70. But I think they're, from what I heard, United do have some confidence.
Yeah, even like his interview yesterday, the way he spoke, it was the tone, not the words, which was like, I'm just so sure. He was like, I'm sure he's going to do really, really well over there. There wasn't even like an inclination, or it was just when you listen to him say it, if this news story hadn't come out that Spurs are coming back in, you'd go, it sounds like he's going Man United. But yeah, I'm really confident with that one, if I'm being honest with you. Twisted Bubba here says, Terry, are you convinced that Mbeumo is a needle mover? Have you seen where Man United are, Twisted?
Easy enough to move it.
It's not hard to move this needle. I mean, in terms of improvement, but yes, he's XG and his outputs are very good. He fits physically what we need: speed, power, first touch, great technical ability. He's so much of what we've been missing. The amount of times United players would get into good positions, but not even have the acceleration to beat a man to be able to get a shot or cross off is ridiculous. We lack physicality. He has output. I think it's an excellent piece of business. If you don't, Twisted Bubba, that's up to you. Fireburn here says, Joyce and Ornstein answer to the club with what they say. Well, and this is why, as much as I trust... So I trust the tier ones when they say something's going to happen or it's off. Where I don't always trust them is exactly how much it costs or what the salaries are. Because you're right, they answer to the football clubs, and they will... Ornstein especially, who I have a lot of respect for, his connections are definitely at the football clubs in England. It's so obvious. It's direct with football clubs. And I think there'll be an element of him towing the party line. And I know some YouTubers don't like that, but I also understand it. At the end of the day, that's he's decided to be a journalist. He wants the inside scoop. You're never going to get the inside scoop. This is what I don't get about it. You're never going to get the inside scoop if you start shitting on the people that you're trying to work with. It's as simple as that. It's going to happen. So, yeah, I understand that. What do you both make of the situation with Gyokeres? Because we saw the early part of the weekend that his sort of preference is to go to Arsenal. Alice, how do you see that? And how do you see this one playing out, considering, and I wanted to read this out, actually. This has come from a journalist called, I can't pronounce his first name. I think it's like this Portuguese version of Sebastião, but my dyslexia won't let me pronounce it. But I'm going to call him Seb, right? Seb Sousa-Pinto is his name. According to sporting fans, this is like tier 1 in the sporting world, local, but tier 1 in their world. He says that Arsenal never made an offer to Sporting for Gyokeres. The Swede is a target, but Arteta priority was always Sesko. Gyokeres is still on the list in case a deal doesn't materialize, and his preference, but he prefers the Gunners over Manchester United. So he's confirming that he prefers Arsenal, but equally, like a lot of the news in Germany from the likes of Plattenberg, the Swede is a target, but Sesko is still the main guy. How do you see this panning out, considering that a lot of tier 1s are still saying Sesko's the number 1? Ornstein hasn't changed his mind on that either, because you've heard nothing from him in relation to Gyokeres at all. Like, how do you see this one playing out?
So I've got like 2 things in my mind. Like the first one is, and I've always said this, I think, you know, Gyokeres to Man United heated up when Sesko to Arsenal was heating up. And I've always felt that if both Man United and Arsenal were in for Gyokeres, he'd go to Arsenal. That has been confirmed. They are in the Champions League. But I always felt that if, you know, Arsenal go for Sesko, will get Gyokeres. And I think that's why Gyokeres heated up a bit and then it slowed down a bit. But my mind is, I think Arsenal are going for Sesko. Like, I think they are. But I think they're keeping Gyokeres around because the Sesko price is a bit like, oh, that's, you know, I think they're trying to, I think, because the striker market's quite limited at the moment, everyone's sort of like at Sesko, Ekitike, Gyokeres, like, you know, I feel like they want a good fee for Sesko. And I think Arsenal are saying, well, he's a good player, he's good potential, but he's not quite worth, you know, they don't want to be spending 65, 70 million, is it? I think they want to see if they can get him for 60 or less. I think they're like making it known to Leipzig that they've got Gyokeres, they've got interest in Gyokeres. If they can get Gyokeres for 58 million, I think is what him and his agent had agreed on last year, that he could go for 58 million, but we don't know if that's going to happen. That might push Leipzig to push the Sesko price down as well. So I almost feel that Arsenal are probably prioritising Sesko, but it is about the price tag and everything. And I do think they are putting a lot out about Gyokeres to try and, it's a part of a game to get the Sesko price down. But at the same time, I do think, like, Gyokeres wants the Premier League or La Liga. That's apparently what was said, you know, and Man United would be his second choice after Arsenal, despite interest from Juventus. So I do think for Gyokeres to make it known that he wants Arsenal, have Arsenal given him some indication behind the scenes that they're going for him, because that's a risky thing. Because now Man United know that Gyokeres wants Arsenal. You know, and Man United and Ruben Amorim have said, you know, if a player only wants to come to Man United for European football, we don't want them. They've said that. So now Gyokeres has made it known Arsenal's his preference. Let's say he doesn't go to Arsenal. Will United still move for him? Will United go, you know what? You made your preference clear. And so for Gyokeres to put that out, that is very risky. So there's one half of me thinks, well, this is Arsenal using Gyokeres to get Sesko and his price down. But the other half of me says maybe there's something Gyokeres knows. Maybe he's been given confidence by Arsenal to do something like that, because I think that's a risky thing for him to do.
Yeah, I think there's so much, like, similar to what we were saying there about like Mbeumo. There's so much like information going around. It's hard to believe what is actually being said, and you kind of have to make up your own opinion on where the clubs should stand around the situation. So if it's a case of United are being told maybe in the background that Gyokeres does want to go to them, and he's just like, maybe Arsenal have said something else along the lines of, we're going for Sesko, and they're trying to figure it out. I just think United fans and United, similar to like the Mbeumo, they should stand firm and say, listen, if you want to come to us, come to us. If you want to go to Arsenal, but we're not a second choice. You know what I mean? Even though the situation that we are in, we only want players that want to play for us. And I think that's why there's probably more confidence in Mbeumo, because he's, even though there is interest from Spurs, he's saying, well, I want to go to United. And it's just maybe Brentford that are looking for a bit more of an extra fee. So, yeah, I think the Arsenal situation is weird, because I think after the season that they've had, the Zubimendi, I think we got a here we go in January, and that's still not over the line. They haven't got a transfer for, or maybe even confirmed who their target is in terms of who they're actually going after. And even the Arsenal fans seem to be getting a little bit more edgy. Now, I think they'll give them a little bit of leeway up until the start of the season. But if they haven't got any like a striker in or Zubamendi over the line before the season starts, then like I think there's going to be a lot of backlash from that side as well. So yeah, they just need to get a move on. I think Alice is right though. I think once one is signed, I think pretty quickly after that, then the other one, whether that's Sesko or Gyokeres, that goes first.
Yeah, look, I think I don't know who leaked the information to Fabrizio that his preference is Arsenal. I'm sure Gyokeres is fuming about that because it opens him up for scrutiny. But I'll be honest, from a Man United fan perspective, I've seen a lot of big United accounts this weekend. I'm sure you've seen them, Alice, because you probably follow a lot of the same people that are doing the whole, I don't want him, I don't want sloppy seconds. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and there's a comment that came through that I think depicts this brilliantly, the opening line anyway. It says that there's a difference between someone saying, you're shit, I'm never joining you, or I'm considering my options and I want to see what my preferences are to be. And I kind of look at it that way. That's why there's been a big backtrack straight away. I think Gyokeres is open to joining Manchester United. He would just prefer Arsenal. And I respect that at this moment in time, if that makes sense. I totally get it. I'm also a lot older than you two. I know the hair ain't gone grey yet, so I look similar. No, I don't. I look very old compared to you two. But the point is, I remember lots of players joining us that had options elsewhere, but the deals didn't materialize. This has happened before. There have been players that have done that. And I think, I'll give you an example. Cristiano Ronaldo was a hair's breadth from joining Arsenal. Didn't happen. And then he became a Manchester United player. People forget these things. And, you know, there is this element of, you know, it's a professional sport and people are making professional decisions, not personal ones all the time. Of course, it's amazing if you can find a Cunha. Cunha grew up supporting United. His favorite player is Wayne Rooney. The opportunity arose, and you can tell he's just gone, I'm going United. This is my dream come true. This means the most to me. And that's great. But you're not going to find 23 players available that are all going to think and feel that way, that suit what you need as players. And I think we as football fans need to try and be a little bit more mature around this. When it comes to Arsenal, honestly, it's so hard to tell what's going on. And I don't think you could be the biggest Arsenal fan for 50 years, 60 years, 100 years. You could be a journalist. You could be a rival. Berta is the problem here. And when I say problem for us trying to work out what's going on, because this is his operating model. He will negotiate deals until they are almost complete. If they want a striker, they might do it with 2 or 3, and they'll just progress them both like you're our number one target until right near the end, and then they make their mind up and pick one. When I read this about him about 7 months ago, I didn't think it'd actually look and feel like this, but legit, they're just 1 week. It's like, Sesko's happening. All the German, it was only last week, Plattenberg literally said in an interview outside some stadium, I am absolutely convinced that Sesko will be an Arsenal player. Since he said that, there's been almost no talk until this morning about Sesko being an Arsenal player, and it's all moved on to the Gyokeres situation. I don't think any of the journalists know yet. Do you know why? Because I don't think Arsenal made their minds up. I do not think Berta and Arteta have sat there and said this, although still the vast majority of tier ones are siding more towards Sesko, but it's about a 60-40 split. So it's anyone's guess as far as I'm concerned, because I think, and also, you know, normally you get like 2 or 3 links and it turns out that 1 or 2 of them are really fabricated. I just don't think these are. I think they're real. And the only thing with Arsenal is they're really holding up the market, because there's other, United have already started talking to Ekitike and Osimhen and other strikers. But of course, we might not press the button on that yet, because still the number one choice at this point is Gyokeres, and it might happen. So I suppose that's the frustrating element, isn't it, Alice? That we just don't quite know who we can go after or who we will go after until Arsenal decide, really. I mean, would you continue waiting, or would you prefer United now to move on and secure themselves a number 9, irrespective of what Arsenal and Gyokeres do?
Yeah, look, for me, obviously, we need a number 9. Like, Hojlund was just, I mean, honestly, I feel sorry for the guy, but he couldn't do it against Hong Kong. He couldn't do it against Asino. So it's like, we do need a number 9. But as I said, like, if you bring Cunha and Mbeumo in, that's 2 players that got, I think, 35 or 36 Premier League goals between them last season. That's two players that, you know, can actually have played striker and could if you wanted them to, but you don't really want them to. You want them to be your 10s. You know what I mean? You got Xerxes, who showed second half of the season. Okay, we're seeing what Xerxes is about, and I think if he has goal scorer wingers around him, because he's a bit of a 9.5, he could do quite well. I look at Manchester United. We obviously need a striker, but I also know we need a centre midfielder. We need a central midfielder, and people, I think, downplay the importance of that. But we need, you know, we really struggle with elements of ball progression. Somebody that's able to sort of get the ball off the centre backs with their back to goal. You know, like we need a Gravenberch type player. That's sort of what we need and what we lack. You know, and there's questions over will Maino be better as a 10 or in the pivot in Amorim's system. You know, all of that as well. So I go, well, let's just get Mbeumo. Then let's go and look at the centre mid market. Then let's go and look at the goalkeeping market. And, you know, get the bozo out of net. You know. And then, you know, we can go back to striker, because if Victor Gyokeres is saying, you know, Arsenal's my preference, la la la, I just don't think there's any point delaying signing a midfielder and delaying looking at goalkeepers for Victor Gyokeres. Like, yeah, he's great, he's a good talent, but you know, the striker market is still like, there's still a lot of like question marks over a lot of strikers. For me, is get Mbeumo done, get your midfielder, get your goalkeeper, then let's come back. Let's come back in August. If Gyokeres is still at Sporting in August, he's going to be getting annoyed. His price tag's probably going to be put down because he's going to be putting pressure on. He hasn't found a club. I think Sporting thought a lot more clubs were coming for Gyokeres than actually have, to be honest. You know, a lot of clubs haven't shown, like Liverpool haven't really gone for Gyokeres, Chelsea haven't shown any interest, to be honest, like credible interest. You know, it's one of those. So I think for me, I would literally go back, because I think Ekitike will not be £85 million. I think that is ridiculous. One good season, do you know what I mean? I think those prices could go down in the window when they realise that nobody's acting on it, this and that as well. And worst case scenario, like sometimes you can just do, and I know Man United aren't really in the place to do a bit part signing, but sometimes you could just say, is there anyone we can bring in for a year? Goncalo Ramos on loan, emergency August deal. Like, it's not the best deal in the world, but you know, do you want to spend 85 million on Ekitike when he's so young and we're such a raw environment? You know, Gyokeres financial package. I mean, look, I'd love us to go for Victor Osimhen, and if he's going to lower his wages, then I would prioritise Victor Osimhen over midfielder and goalkeeper. But I think with Man United, like, we should look elsewhere a little bit.
Yeah, there's other, like as you said, Alice, there's other areas that you can go and strengthen. And I think obviously maybe what United are thinking around budget wise. So like if they go out and spend like X amount in different areas, will they be able to, even if the price does come down, will they be able to outlay, say, specific or bigger amounts on those types of Gyokeres or Sesko? I think that might be in the back of their minds. But yeah, I would say central midfield is probably an area that you could upgrade. The thing is, I think Garnacho could leave. Kobe Menu, I don't know, there was talk of him potentially leaving. In terms of Amorim and how he fits the system, like he didn't really get too much game time last season. I know he's coming back from a bad injury and stuff, but it is interesting to see like how he kind of fits him into that team, because sometimes he feels like he could play in that 10, but I think with Cunha and Mbeumo coming in, I think they're probably going to be the ones that are going to play there, and then they'll have the striker up front. So it's interesting to see what way they could go. I think right wing back is somewhere that you could strengthen as well. There's definitely like an area there. I think Dorgo is someone that maybe he'll push on next year. I thought there's definitely potential there, and yeah, goalkeeper is probably an area that I just think another season with Onana, you're just almost starting from like a 8 or 9 point like minus, because he's just going to drop you points regardless. You know what I mean?
Well, that was one of the stories this morning from Luckhurst, that he's expected to stay. I mean, it's not what Onana said. Onana said maybe we'll see. So I mean, the player himself has said something different from him. But there's also a lot of comment here from Shane that says, how come United fans don't believe the reports that the club think Hojlund can still replicate his form from Atlanta? And yeah, I did see those and say he can become prolific. I can't speak for Alice. I'll answer that by just saying the club will say a lot of these things, and that's right. The club would be really silly if asked by a journalist, "What do you think Hojlund's a good player?" to go, "Nah, he's shit." Because then you're why would the club? This is where sometimes football fans can be really thick. We as a collective can be thick. Is that how the club speaks about its players? They're always going to say they're better than they really are. Even if they're the best in the world, they'll say they're the greatest ever. If they're one of the best in the world, they say they're the best. If they're average, they'll say they're brilliant. If they're crap, they'll say they're good. They always say they're better than they really are. Because how can you imagine Man United brief the media and say we think he's trash and the worst striker we've signed, and then they sit down in an interview with Inter Milan and go, he's brilliant. They just pull out the articles.
We want 40, 50 million. And they're like, well, you just said this.
Would sell Hojlund or would you keep him? Like I know there's talk of a loan option with Inter Milan, but I just think I wouldn't be loaning them out anyway. I think you either keep him or you sell him for 30, 40. That would
I'll
be
let
my
Alice
opinion.
answer that. Go on.
I am happy to loan him if it was a club that I felt was the right club for his development. I think with Inter having Lautaro and Thuram, is he going to get a lot of minutes? But I think loan with obligation to buy is probably the most likely scenario, because I just think if he stays at Man United next season, he's going to be crap. And it's not because I think he's a crap player. I think it's the environment. I think it's the pressure. I think he's so young that I feel like he needs a year away from Manchester United to reset, to get a new environment, to get his confidence up. Because Hojlund in his first season, he got 16 goals for us. And yes, he had, patches where you could see he was raw and went like 9 Premier League games without a goal. But you could see last season in the Champions League, the games against Bayern Munich, when he got his confidence up, 16 goals, lack of service. There was a lot to back Hojlund with in his first season. No service, 16 goals, coming off the bench, was carrying a back injury as well. No support because he literally had no one to rotate with or anything like that. So now it's sort of like this season he's been so bad. Like I'm someone that like when fans start getting on the players' back, I'm like, look guys, it's been like a couple of bad games, like calm down. But like I can't defend Hojlund, and when I can't defend Hojlund, and I feel like I've got a lot more patience than most fans, I'm like yes, he doesn't get loads of service, but Cheeto came on, and there's been 2 or 3 games where Cheeto's come on, and yeah, Cheeto might have not scored, but then Cheeto's got in an area and had a shot and almost created them chances for himself with his movement. It's like I think elements of it is Hojlund's movement. Yes, he doesn't get the most service, but we're playing SEA All-Stars, we're playing Hong Kong. Even for Denmark the other day, he was atrocious. Like obviously a break pre-season, come back fresh can make a difference, but he mentally just looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like it looks like like they've given someone their dream to play with Man United, and it's just a random kid. It feels like that sometimes watching him play. He looks out of place, and it's concerning. And I think there's probably people, I do think, going back to what Terry said, at Man United, that will look at Hojlund and say, look, he's got the height, he's got the speed, he's got the physical capabilities, he's got good ball striking. To be fair to him, like he has a good shot when when he gets the ball in a good area. And I can see why people might believe in Hojlund's potential, because the physical attributes are there and the striker market's limited, and what he showed at Atalanta, what he showed in his first season. I do think there's people at United that believe in Hojlund's potential, particularly in this limited striker market. There's a reason we spent a lot of money on him. Plus, we are just stupid to spend loads of money anyway.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, I just don't feel like being at United is doing him any good. I really don't. And
I would say I'm leaning more towards the case of if he wasn't the number 9. I just think, in fairness to Amorim, I don't think he's maybe taken him out of the team, and I think that just comes down to the fact that he couldn't. You know what I mean? He was the only option that was there that was like a reputable striker that could go out and maybe potentially score, even though he wasn't. And I do think if he had like a Gyokeres, I know Sesko will be young as well, but Gyokeres is 27, I think. Just someone that he could maybe lean on, or even just sitting on the bench, looking at the game, and just picking out different parts of the game to see where there's areas where he could be in that channel, or he could make that run, and then he could maybe get a bit more for a feel for it. Now, I know post-match they're probably doing a lot of analysis with him to say this is what you should be doing, this is what you shouldn't be doing. But when you're in the game and you're thinking about, I didn't do that, or I should have done that, and he's looking back on it and he's seeing all the mistakes that he's making, his confidence is just getting hammered. And then obviously with how United were playing around the pitch, that was the issue. But I just think alone, I don't see it as a win-win for United. If he could stay, he could potentially go on and have a run. If he goes on loan and then it's an obligation to buy, maybe, yeah. But I think you're either going to get money for him or you keep him.
Yeah, I think we've got to be mindful of that. I also, a lot of United fans were frustrated that he kept on playing last year, though, and Cheeto wasn't given the chance. And the problem you have is when a player doesn't have all the fundamentals in place at the pro level, if you play them too much too soon with the pressure of the United shirt, the media scrutiny, Cheeto has also got a massive fan base on his back every time he touches the grass in Arsenal, because they're disgruntled that he left. They'll say they're not, but they definitely are. You don't want to do to him what happened to Hojlund and start giving him too much game time before he's ready, making him the star man, because he can crumble and crack in the same way. And if you actually go back and watch footage of Hojlund in his first 6 to 9 months, he is not the same player then as he is now. I'm not saying he was great, but he had some really good first touches. This guy picked up the ball in Champions League games, dribbled from the halfway line and scored goals. He did that. There was a goal that was given offside. His toe was offside. Won't be offside next season with the new rules coming in. The touch to send the defender the wrong way, turn and put it into the roof of the net. I remember watching that. The touch and strike against Spurs when it flew into the top corner. I remember watching that thinking, there's a player here that can create space and score goals. He has just got progressively worse. And maybe he was playing on a higher then and was just in a purple patch of form, and what we're now seeing is the real him. But that doesn't match what I saw when you do your reviews of these Atalanta games. It was more what I saw in the first season at United. I just think the pressure, too much game time, the lack of structure at the club before Amorim joined and everything that happened since, I think it's just broken him. So for me, I would look to be moving him on. I don't think he'll turn it round at United. But I do think as well he could leave and do very well elsewhere. He'll be one of those players that could leave this year. He could go somewhere like Inter, into a different environment, get that pressure off his back, maybe not be the main guy, work his way into the team, score 10 to 15 goals and be an important part in Inter Milan winning Serie A, similarly to the way Scott McTominay, who was scoring goals for us in his last season, but his performances weren't great, wasn't great on the ball, made loads of mistakes like the other players, goes to Serie A, and I wonder what odds you would have got at the beginning of the season, not only for him to be lifting the title, but for him to be the player of the season over there.
Yeah.
I think Rasmus, I'm not saying he'll be player of the season wherever he goes, but I think he can leave and have a really positive impact on that club. Because I don't think he's as bad a football player as his form suggests, but I'm also convinced he won't turn it round. Very similar to Rashford, similar to a lot of these players. Garnacho will leave, very likely, and I think he'll do a great job wherever he goes. But I also think staying here is maybe not the best environment for him, if that makes sense. I think sometimes you've got to, I've seen it in my own working life. You know, people leave the organizations I've been with. They've been bad staff members, toxic relationship, not with me, but with the wider company. I've seen a lot of them leave, go to new places and flourish. I've seen it in my life in normal worlds. You've seen people break up, horrible people when they're together. They separate, they get with new people. They're suddenly pleasant. You think, well, it was sometimes it's the relationship that's the problem and not the individual. So yeah, I'd move them on to the super chats point. This here says, so Jim literally went in an interview and named players who weren't worth their wages. Yes, and was heavily criticized for it. So again, my friend, you're fundamentally missing the point. Was heavily criticized for saying that publicly by people like myself because it damages the price you can get for these players in the market. Although fans have an opinion, you've got. I said it the other way. I mean, I know Alice saw these tweets. Every time La Liga bigged up Anthony, my view was we should be sticking £2.5 million on the price tag because that's a league calling Anthony the GOAT. I'm using that in the sales process to say, hang on a minute, you can't say he's trash when your own league is celebrating how brilliant he is. And this is where Man United fans really sometimes annoy me. Is we're so desperate to shit on our own players. You often don't hang on, but there is a narrative to help try and control here to better the club. You don't always have to, like, there's times to criticize, and there are times actually, well, do I have to praise everyone? No, you can just say fuck all, mate. You can just not tweet. You don't have to, I'm gonna go online to shit on another United player. But there's no need to today. We won 3-0. Yes, he missed an open goal. You can leave him alone. Sorry, Al. Sorry.
Some of our fans expect so much from like such young players, and it's like we don't, we shouldn't be relying on the 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old academy kids to save the club. Like, we look at the FA Cup final that we won. Mbeumo and Garnacho were the two best players on the pitch. They won that FA Cup for us against the Manchester City title-winning side, and they're fantastic. And they were 18, 19 years of age when they did that. But yeah, then they get hyped up by all these fans because they're great talents. And when you compare them to other players their age, they're incredible talents. But Mbeumo's been injured and he hasn't found his best role this season. All of a sudden, some of our fan base is like, oh yeah, I'd sell Mbeumo. Mbeumo's a flop. And it's like, and I tweeted this today. I said, look at Vitinha. Look at Vitinha at Mbeumo's age. Couldn't get a game for Wolves. Was seen as, all of that. Look at Vitinha now. Look at Alejandro Garnacho. I see fans saying, yeah, 40 million. 40 million for Garnacho. Max Kuhlmann went for £40 million. Like, Garnacho is so frustrating. There's not a player at Man United that frustrates more than Garnacho because he does miss chances. But his ability to get in dangerous positions, his ability to be direct, take people on, like only Yamal and Dewey, aged 21 or under, have more goal contributions than him this season. And like, we should be asking for 60 million. Obviously, because of the fallout of Amorim, it could be the 50 million range. But when you look at the market, and Garnacho's had a better season than Gittins statistically. Nico Williams statistically as well. He's had better seasons than them, and they're spoken about like the amazing talents. And it's like, well, actually, when you watch a little bit of Gittins and you watch a little bit of Nico Williams, they're good players, but then they have bad games here and there. They're inconsistent. But because I feel like Man United fans only watch Man United week in, week out, they don't watch Nico Williams, who did nothing against United when he played United, or a couple of, I remember watching the Besiktas game because Ollie was there. Nico Williams was atrocious. And if Garnacho had put in that performance, it would have been everywhere. And I feel like we have this thing of we hype up other teams' players and we put down ours, and it's like, come on.
It's that thing of you're in a restaurant and it's, oh, that looks like, I wish I ordered that. Oh, I wish I ordered that now. I did a video about 8 years ago and it was titled, You're Either Mbappe or Shit. And I saw this coming into football where if you were a kid and you weren't as good as Mbappe, most people, and this was every club, this wasn't just Man United, it was, oh, we've got a young kid coming through, he's starting today. Oh, we didn't do it, Mbappe did shit. And that's a really weird barometer. Man United fans would have killed Vitinha before he was able to develop. And you also get comments like this that says, Terry, I remember Terry said, give Hojlund service and he'll be on fire. I bet we'll have the same gas if United get a new striker. But I stand by what I said when I said it, because back last season, his touch was good. His hold-up play was decent. He was performing okay in games. He just wasn't getting the service. And I felt that if we created more for him, he would have scored more goals. What that would have done is grew his confidence. So you would have hopefully seen, at the very least, his game stay the same, if not improve, plus more service, more goals. It didn't happen. I always remember a famous example with Liverpool with this happening, my friend. Stuart Downing.
Don't remind me.
But go back and watch his debut game. I watched it. My brother's a Liverpool fan. I watched it with him. This man was dribbling past he was killing it. He had man of the match performance, and then he almost scored one of the best debut goals ever, a screamer, but it hit the crossbar and missed. The next game, played really well. He missed chances again. Next game, still did good, missed chances. Got 5, 6, 7 games in, you started to see the weight of not scoring and the weight of being a Liverpool player start to crush him. And he never ever got back to the level that we saw for Middlesbrough and that he started his career on. I still fervently believe, had a couple of those early games, shots had gone in, I think his confidence would have grew and grew and grew, could have been a different player. Joe Cole, similarly, I think he scores that debut penalty. I don't think he then goes on to get sent off. I think his Liverpool career could have been different. Sometimes it can be a game or two. Sometimes it can come later on. You can do well and then you go for a bad run and you just never recover. It doesn't mean the analysis at that time wasn't true. Last season, there was an abundance of opportunities to tap him in for pull the ball back for tap-ins for him, and we failed to do it. This season, I will not have anyone lie or gaslight me into saying that things like his touch and his hold-up play and his runs and his movement haven't changed and got worse since last season. They have. To just go back and rewrite history and go, I always say we'd be the shit from the start. Well, you were wrong, because he was doing things last year that he hasn't been doing this year. But I'll criticize him for that now because it's there. So thanks for the super chat. This here says, I disagree with Alice. Hojlund lacks speed. His first touch is awful and he blows chances. It's not about service. It's just he's not good enough for us.
Yeah, I mean, I said in his first season, he had the speed. His touch was better. He didn't have the service. In his second season, this is what we've just seen. I still think he has the speed, but his touch is awful. And he has missed a couple of little chances for us this season. And I feel like it's not just been about service this season, because we've seen Obi come on and actually create chances for himself. But in his first season, his touch was better. He was scoring the chances he had in his first season. He was very clinical, but he didn't have any service. Whereas it's, as you were saying, it's just changed so much in a year.
With young players as well, like one thing you have to take into account is when they play for a bigger club, such as United, and the problems that they have right now, there's a lot more than, say, just bringing a young player in, but the quality isn't there. So when you look at like players like Man Utd and like Garnacho that had such good seasons last year and they were maybe like starting to improve, you could see that a path where they could lead the United team going forward. As soon as their form dips, like any form can for a young player, and the situation that they're in where United we're not getting points on the board, you look to people that like will try and get you out of it. And because United only had Bruno, Garnacho and Man Utd, say last season, they don't have anyone else they can maybe put the blame on. Do you know what I mean? So they just go to players that should be potentially getting them out of it. And that's where the pressure starts to come on to players like Mbeumo and Garnacho, who probably should be being protected in most other instances. Like I remember Foden when he was coming through at Man City, they had so much abundance of players and availability to say put someone else in instead of Foden that he didn't start many games when he was first coming through. He was just being led into the team, and then he goes on and wins Player of the Year. I know this season hasn't been his best season, which can happen for a young player, but it's just, they have to be able to develop. You have to give them time to adjust. Even I think Mbeumo this season, the reason he's probably maybe started to get so many injuries is because as soon as he got into the team in, I think, December time last year, he was played in every single game, which is not normal for a player at 18 years of age to be playing every single game in a first team at a club like United.
No, it's so true. And I know you both got to shoot viewers. We've got KJ and George jumping in as replacements in a few moments' time. I've always felt this about Trent. Had Trent been the same player, same brilliance going forward, same defensive frailties as a kid, had he joined the Liverpool team 10 years earlier when you were rubbish, there's no way your fans would have forgiven the defensive mishaps when you were sitting 6th and 7th and going out of tournaments early. You can always protect players more when you're a good team, because you're doing well. Jack Grealish would never have been given the leeway he got from City fans for 2 or 3 seasons had they not have been winning league titles and trebles and everything else. And I just sometimes feel that we don't see that as United fans because we're thirsty and we're starving and everything else there. But guys, I know you both got to shoot 11:30. Appreciate you both coming on. And I'm sure we'll see you both again soon on the show.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers,
guys. Take care. Thank you. KJ is jumping in to join us now. I think we've got George coming onto the show as well. Thank you, Adele, for your super chat here. Agree. I've been saying midfield is a much bigger priority. And listen, I agree with what Alice said as well. And I think it's really important to touch on this because if we can't get the striker and it doesn't look like it's going to move quickly, then maybe move on to other priority areas, get that new goalkeeper, get that new athletic, ball progressing, press resistant midfield player and improve those areas and then come back to the striker market a little bit later. I think both those things are key. This here says, by the way, Terry, notice how nobody said the 70 million Spurs had allegedly bid for Mbeumo was too much. Big up George, who's with us now as well on the show. Yeah, listen, I agree. No one was ever going to... Listen, when Man United bid for Mbeumo, everyone moaning that we were distorting the market, they were really and truly Newcastle fans. It wasn't even Liverpool or Arsenal or Spurs fans. It was purely and simply Newcastle fans who were just bitter because I think they truly convinced themselves that he was going to turn them down, us down for them. That was it. That was all it really boiled down to, if we're being absolutely honest. Terry, Arsenal are not buying both Sesko and Gyokeres. It's one or the other since Arteta and Arsenal want Sesko's mother for using.
Oh, no, I think it's supposed to be Sesko, but also
using him. How do you boys see that going? Because the news is, we were talking about earlier on in the show, the news around it is crazy. Arsenal working on both those deals. I know some gooners think they might get both, but there is no credible source that has yet said they're looking for 2 number 9s. What do you think is going to be, George? Sesko or Gyokeres?
Do you know what? It's a tough one because it, like I said, it keeps leaning one way one week, then the next week it's leaning towards the other player. So like, it's a bit of like who is going to come in. I would say Gyokeres is the better option, and if they choose Sesko, they'd be very silly because a team in their position needs someone that can compete with the likes of Hojlund, compete with the likes of Salah. Because Liverpool and Man City are only going to push on next season. Gyokeres is the only player I think in world football right now that's going to compete with those numbers that's available. Sesko is a player that's just going to come in, maybe be good for a bit. He looks very similar to Havertz, if you ask me. Not really good with the finish. He's decent in the air, but outside of that, his all-round game is just like, he's good with link-up, but he's not a goal scorer. He's not a gifted goal scorer. So I think if they're smart, they're going to go for the Gyokeres deal. It's also cheaper than Sesko, it looks like, when you actually talk about the all-round package. But I've got a feeling they're going to go for Sesko. I've just got Arsenal have this thing for young players. He's also really tall. He's 6'4". He fits in with their, set piece FC. It's just with Arsenal, they always tend to go for the players with potential rather than the proven ones, and I think they're going to lean on this Sesko for that. And also, I feel like he'd be more happy to just come in and be a part, just be a part of the squad. Whereas Gyokeres, they're going to have to uproot some players like Havertz and some of these forward, they're not going to get as much time on the pitch. Gyokeres has to start. He's going to be on big money, but also he's probably going to have to adapt his system a little to, bring Gyokeres into that. I reckon with Sesko, he'll just be like, look, Sesko, you're coming in to be played this way, not the other way around, where with Gyokeres, they're going to have to work on it for themselves. So, yeah, I think they'll end up being Sesko, but they'd be very silly to make that signing.
I don't think there's any mileage of them playing games right now, because if footballers have got mad egos, we know that now. Like, that's the way the games have gone. You got your young players like Garnacho expecting to be part of the top 6 teams and then playing Champions League after a career where you can say you've done niche. You know what I mean? You've won FA Cup and that's it. You got people like Delap demanding Champions League football, and he played for Ipswich. But so players have these big egos. If this ploy is true, that this is a real ploy by Arsenal, playing Gyokeres off Sesko to try and get the Sesko deal done. What if Leipzig don't actually lower the price to what they want? Their game is now out in the open. The game is now known, and now they have to go back to Gyokeres like, oh, actually no, we have to get you now. And he's like, he could be like, mate, I've seen what you was doing. You didn't really want me. You just wanted to use me to try and get another player. I'm not going to sign for you anymore because I don't feel truly wanted. So then Arsenal miss out on 2 players. That's why I don't actually believe it's this weird game, this media game, this transfer game that they're playing with these. Because we know Berta has a track record of lining up 2 players and then picking one. That's completely different than using one just to get the other. You know what I mean? Like, they genuinely want Sesko, they genuinely want Gyokeres, and it's just about making that decision. So I think that they will get Gyokeres, just for the main fact that I don't think Leipzig will bow down to their demands, bow down to their games and all these things, because they don't need to. Sesko's got a contract. Sesko can stay there for another year, and they'll still get similar money that they're demanding next year anyway. Okay, cool, they may want 80 million this year or whatever, how much it is. But next year, they can still get 70. They can still get 60 million if he has a good season. So I think Gyokeres is the guy that they get in the end.
Do you know what I'm loving about it, though? Is again, just as a spectator, I was watching the Arsenal fans in this debate, because they are genuinely split 50-50. Yeah. It feels that way. There are some that are just like, Sesko's the guy for the system. He suits us better at this, better at that, better at the other. There are others. Some of them are also like, Arteta wants him, so I want him. Then there are others that are just like, because Arteta wants Sesko, I don't. There is literally that. Like, that's a big thing. But it's Gyokeres. Then you get the flip flops, who I've seen for 2 weeks for 2 weeks in May were like Gyokeres. Then when they moved on to Sesko, they're like, actually, I think he's the guy. Now they're like, actually, Gyokeres is the dude again. I remember Igal last week saying that he feels that no one trying to buy Gyokeres is a massive red flag for how bad he is. And I think I said at the time, well, maybe he's already picked his club. Maybe he's already told them that Man United is where he wants to go, which is why no one else is bidding for him. A lot of people have misconstrued that as, Terry said United were getting him. No, it was a suggestion to why something was happening, not the reason. Ironically, it's Igal's club Arsenal that have come in for him. So I'm so intrigued to get his opinion on this now. But I just think they're going to, there's always a risk. But I think where they're in a good position, I think both Sesko and Gyokeres want them as their number 1 choice. So they're in that kind of power position where both those players want to join them. And seemingly they know that they must know in the footballing world they're negotiating with both, but they're both pushing for that move. The question is, are United fans going to cry if we end up getting Gyokeres and we're second choice? Me personally, no. I just want better players at my club. This isn't like us three all chasing after the same beautiful, sophisticated young lady. Not that we all would, because, the situations, but hypothetically, right? tell Kai. I'm just hypothetical, KJ. I don't get in trouble. It's different if it's like I prefer George, but I do really like KJ. Terry, it's just because you got a nice car, but I don't want you, right? And then George says, no, I found someone better. KJ's like, I just got married. And then she's like, oh, Till, do you fancy going for a drive? If I say yes to that, I'm a bit of a simp. But that's a personal, emotive relationship thing. This is professionalism. And as long as we bring in someone that scores goals, I'm very relaxed personally. But I get I've seen some United fans who have, again, I think they're the incels who are like, no, we can't accept this rejection.
First choice.
No, it's funny that you say that about the Arsenal fans, Terry, because that's exactly what they're doing. What they're trying to do is get ahead of the curve with the rejection. So they want the player that doesn't reject them. They want the player that ultimately is the one that's going to end up at Arsenal. So because let's have it right. If Gyokeres lands and all those people that say they wanted Sesko, they're going to be like, Gyokeres scored 50 goals last season. Yeah. And then they're going to start using all the stats as to why Gyokeres was a better signing. And that's exactly what's happening here, man. So,
George, you made a point earlier about Gyokeres joining and how Arteta would have to like adjust things to bring him in. I think they should. I think he needs to. I think he needs to adjust things just for the fact that whatever he's been doing has only been getting him to a certain point in the league and in competitions. Maybe someone like Gyokeres would be that tactical switch or that tactical change that is it might be a risk because it's not your known formula, but it might be the little change that you need to win. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, if you get Sesko and all it is plug and play, history dictates that you will fall short in some way, shape, or form. And I know that sounds a bit harsh. You could be like, oh, but it could be the time that it works. And there's a big chance that it could. But if 3 years in a row you get second, if you are slowly getting closer to the Champions League or getting closer to cups, but there's always a reason why you get knocked out, maybe innovation is what you need. Maybe it's not just consistently going for the same plan. Maybe it's like, okay, maybe in the final third we tweak these things with Gyokeres in there and he gets us the goals that gets over the line. So I think Gyokeres would be the smarter signing, even if it is something where Arteta has to adapt to that. Because I think it'll be a good adaptation. Because I don't think Arteta's a crap coach, by the way. I don't think, he doesn't know how to adapt to players. He doesn't know how to like change things when he needs to. I think he can. And because I think he can, that's why I think, well, this adaptation with Gyokeres could be the thing that takes you over the line.
AJ here says, as an Arsenal fan, I like both. Sesko plays for a team with the least chance created, so the amount of goals scored doesn't reflect his ability. I slightly lean towards Gyokeres. Berta will pick the cheaper of the two. He might. I mean, I don't think it's about cheaper. I think it's really about the footballing side. But it's funny, if you put in the comments going, what rejection? Neither want to reject us. I think what George was alluding to, correct me if I'm wrong, George, is it's either the one that rejects you or just being ahead of the curve in terms of the one Arsenal pick. So you can say, I backed the winning horse rather than it's because I listen, it's not all Arsenal fans, but I've seen some go from a whole season of Gyokeres is the guy to actually I was wrong, Sesko's it, to last week going, shit, we're going back for Gyokeres now. And I've tweeted out all these things. It's almost just sometimes you've got to be. That's why I decided. I used to do this when I first started making content. If United wanted a player and then we missed out, I'd do the whole. Actually, I did my research and it'll be bad for X, Y, and Z. And I just got bored of lying for the sake of I've got to show I'm a good United fan here. No, if I say for a year I want Gyokeres and Arsenal get him, I'm going to say I'm gutted. What a signing for Arsenal. If Mbeumo, who I rate, does turn us down now and join Spurs, I'm not going to suddenly pretend that it's an overrated, flat track bully who only does it at a small club. That's why he couldn't handle joining United. I don't know. I've just dropped all that bitterness in my life. I can't do it anymore. Like at the end of the day, I agree with this guy. I think both players are very good and will help Arsenal. I actually don't think either are a bad signing, personally, but I think Gyokeres will be the better one. The whole thing with Arsenal, RB Leipzig and Sporting and United is a four-way tactical chess game with Sesko, Gyokeres and Osimhen stuck in the middle in mind games. Well, maybe Arsenal have only bid because Amorim has phoned up Arteta saying, can you guys bid? So my owners give me more money.
Wait, who said wait? Oh, it was like Eddie Luca who said that.
Maybe Arsenal are doing it to help Man United out. Maybe that's the whole ploy. That's the whole, but it's gone wrong because the players decided he wants Arsenal.
Yeah.
You ever seen those films where someone's like, right, what I want you to do is I want you to like go and ask out there's American rom-coms, go and ask out my girl, take her out on a date. I want to see how faithful she is. But then the guy that goes in to pretend to try and get her ends up really liking her and it all goes wrong. Like that's what might happen in that case. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. What's your boys' view on Ekitike? Because obviously you saw him play firsthand last year against yourselves. Yeah. United are now heavily linked with him. Chelsea seen as the front runners at this point. Is he the type of player that the club should be looking to invest in? Because suddenly again,
he's better than Sesko for me, no doubt about it. I'm really surprised as to why more clubs weren't in for him than they were Sesko, because obviously Sesko's name's been around for a few years, so I think naturally he's sort of they've been looking at this move for a while. When he turns 21, 22, he was always going to make that big move. But with Ekitike, obviously I know his move to failed to Newcastle a few years ago, opted for PSG, went downhill a bit, but then he started to build himself back up, and I like that. I like when players go to bigger clubs, have a failed stint, they start to realize maybe, look, I've done it too soon, go to a smaller club, work themselves back up, and then they're ready for that move. For me, when I watch Ekitike, I call him baby Isak, because everything he does is very similar to what Isak does. Maybe not at the same level. I don't think he's as good of a dribble. I don't think he's as good of a finisher, but he's very similar. They're in the archetype of player that they are. You know, he's tall, he's agile, he's strong, he's got quick feet, he's smart with the way that he plays. His link-up play is really good. I think that this would be an amazing signing for any club that picks him up. Now, I do think depending on the way that you want to use him, so Chelsea, for example, they need someone to score a lot of tap-ins. They've got good wingers. They've got guys that are going to take on their man, cut it back across the box. I don't think he's the player for that. He's not the player that's going to be in and around the box, you know, fox in the box. He's not that. But if you want someone who's going to link up the play, link up with Acuna, go down on the wing sometimes, use the space in behind, and utilize it properly, I think Ekitike is that guy, and probably will work for Man United more than anyone, because you guys have Cunha behind him, because you'll potentially have either Bruno or Mbeumo or someone who's a proper creator behind him. I feel like he'll have a lot of fun for your team. Plus, like I say, he's doesn't have to stay in that 9. He doesn't have to be ahead of everyone else. He could drift off to the left and you could put Cunha in the middle. Same with Mbeumo. Mbeumo can drift off in the middle. Ekitike can drift off at the right. So it makes it like a revolving front three. Back into the days of Alex Ferguson, Tevez, Ronaldo, Rooney. That's what that front three could become. And that's what he's perfect for, a system like that. So Ekitike is a top signing, but it's a lot of money involved. That's the only bit where I feel like 80 million, they're probably pushing it, but they know what they're doing. They're keeping him at the same price as Sesko.
You see, when you talk about the fluidity that we could have if we had got someone like Ekitike, that entices me. You know, like I grew up with Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez, loved it. We came close to that under Ollie with Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood. That was a front three that was exciting. It's a front three that scored the most goals for us in a long time as a three. And we was getting close to having that kind of replicated again for us. But then obviously all three of them look like two of them are already out the door, and the third one's about to be out the door for different reasons, right? So Ekitike with an Mbeumo, with a Cunha, and you can swap them out with an Ahmad in there as well. Like, you got players who can rotate in there. It sounds great, and I would love to see it. But at the same time, I'm worried because kind of like, one, like I said, the price tag is huge. Two, you call him baby Isak, I call him skinny Xerxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've got a player like that already in the team in Xerxes. Now, because of Xerxes' lack of pace, it doesn't flow as much as well. So that maybe with Ekitike's speed, added speed, you can have that kind of front three and it work for Man United because compared to how it works with Xerxes, right? But then I'm like, okay, cool. He's a bit like Xerxes. Is he too skinny? Because the guy is thin, you know what I mean? And coming into the Premier League, some of these defenders are massive. Imagine him versus Calvin Bassey or some like beast like that. Like,
no, but you know, KJ, yeah. These guys, these strikers, these PMP, man, they look skinny, yeah. I know you remember them guys from back in the day. They were like the Somalian guys, yeah. They're skinny, but then when you try to barge them, they're like miffed. Their bone density is mad. It's just built different, so they don't move. And that's the same with Ekitike. Like, he just don't move. Like, I remember seeing Romero battle up with him, but he's leaning on Romero. He's one of them tall but like they're skinny but really
Yeah,
strong.
there's
guys,
hidden
so-
strength. If there's
Yeah,
a hidden
yeah,
strength,
man.
then I'm here for that. So I think it's not just a cut and dry. He's better than Gyokeres. Just get him, spend the money. There are some
Yeah,
things
yeah.
which should
It's
balance
like
out.
Nate Diaz in the UFC. Doesn't even look athletic. You know, they used to refer to him as skinny fat, but yet like tough as now, super strong. You're like, oh shit, this guy's got some. Yeah, look, I like Ekitike. Look, the thing for me is all these strikers we're linked to. I'm not gonna lie, none of them I'm looking at and going, oh, dead. Maybe it's because we're thirsty, right? Maybe there's I've got to be open about that. But I look at it and there's different things. I look at Gyokeres as a player who I think would come in and I think would likely for us or Arsenal or Chelsea, all of us, come in and score a lot of goals. But he is 27. So you could find that in 2 to 3 to 4 seasons, you're like, we've got to start looking for somebody else now. So that comes with its issues. When I look at Sesko's and I look at Ekitike's, I see players that have the ability to it's like that case of, are you buying the next Isak rather than dropping 150, 160 million on the current one? And I'm not saying Sesko plays like Isak. I'm just talking about the age and what they could develop into. So there's that element. I look at Ekitike. The man can beat people. He's got good skill. Some of his goals are excellent. Some of his goals are absolutely excellent. By the way, KJ's head only looks big because of the camera. Like it's not.
I saw that.
It's like he's like George isn't that much shorter than us. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah. But yeah, I like Ekitike, and you know, if that's what Man United end up with this summer, I'm going to be excited because I think especially with Cunha's and Mbeumo's, Bruno's feeding him, that's going to help him a lot as well. Is he going to be that player that scores 30 goals a season? Maybe not. But with him as part of a front three, Cunha's going to score goals and Mbeumo scores goals. He will score goals. It's a collective. And for me, that group is a collective. And what I did think about last night, I was looking some of the compilations, I was reading some of the threads, I read some articles about him just because he was linked to United. I read a little bit more. The fluidity of that front three would be excellent because they're all very technically gifted on the ball, and United, and they're all quick and they're all fast. And I will say this, it hasn't, not since we had Greenwood, Rashford and Martial starting games together would we have been that technical, that fluid, that fast. And the one thing about having a front three like that, even when we weren't very good, we still won a lot of games because we counter-attacked people and scored a lot of goals. We lack I hate watching them try and counter-attack at the moment. Barring Ahmad, there's no one that can run. So it's trying to counter-attack with no pace is ridiculous. It's so jarring to watch.
In the league, I remember one against Brighton where it's like I think it was 10 seconds. They had a corner. We 3-4 passes, boom, goal in like 10 seconds. We could do that so quickly. Now it takes an age just to get the ball up the pitch, and by the time we get there, the players have caught up, or if they haven't caught up, our players make the wrong decision, and I'm tired of that. I make Man United PMP again. I've been screaming it. So yeah,
you have. Comments here that Garnacho preference is Aston Villa and Arsenal. There's obviously links to Chelsea. There's also links to Tottenham for Alejandro Garnacho. Would you take him?
Nah, I wouldn't take him. He's not the type of player I need. I don't think Garnacho is actually a bad player. I think under the right coach, he could actually improve his game quite a bit. Because for me, one of the biggest things for him is his decision making. Decision making is something that can be coached with a lot of film, watching tactical analysis and breakdowns and stuff. So I think he can definitely get better on that side of thing. But he's just not clinical enough in the final third. He's not. I need someone that's proven. We need Mbeumo. We need a goal scorer on our wings. He's not that. I think he'll come into a team like Aston Villa and still just be a bit part player. I feel if he wants to be the main man in the team, he needs to drop a level. I think he needs to be honest with himself. He needs to have a bit of a reality check. Maybe if he wants to go abroad, go to a Dortmund or something like that, he'd have some fun. Or maybe do what Anthony done, go Real Betis or something. But you're not going to be the main man in a Champions League level club, maybe Europa League, Conference League level club. That's probably more his steez. But at this moment in time now, man, I'd stay far away from Garnacho, and I think all the top 6 should stay far away from Garnacho because more than anything, his head's just too big, man. Like he thinks too much of himself. He'll go into that club and think, yeah, look, I've come from big Manchester. I'm Garnacho. I'm a £60 million player. You need to play me. You need he's got a bit more. He believes in himself a little bit too much. Maybe I think he needs that humbling experience. Maybe even just a year on loan or something. He just needs some time away at a smaller club where he gets to give that reality check of what level he really is at.
I think in terms of Premier League, I think the teams fighting for Europe would be perfect for him. I actually think the best club for him would be either a Nottingham Forest, where they play a style that you used to counter attacking. You have a lot of space to run into, and you have again senior players ahead of him who can take the weight off him if he needs to, or someone like Bournemouth, where he can just run at people, run at players, press. Because again, that's part of his game as well, right? So he's a player that, if his head wasn't so big in terms of arrogance and ego, I would happily keep him at Man United, because I know there's a player that's willing to learn and willing to change and adapt himself to what needs to happen. But because his attitude, let's just say what it is, it stinks. He's called out multiple managers online by liking posts, by letting his brother chat nonsense about the coaching and the Man United as a whole. If he didn't do that, if he wasn't there again, mouthing off in the press, I didn't get enough time on in the final. Like, bro, if you've got problems with that, go speak about that behind doors. Don't bring it out into the public. If it wasn't for that, I'll say keep him. But because he's done all that, bro, you need to learn where you're at. You know what I mean? This ain't the Garnacho show. You're not the main character.
I hear that. My counter is this. I think if he's easier for Man United to sell than Rashford, although there is a big report this morning Rashford's willing to lower his salary because he's still only on 50k a week. So the one issue that we don't have with Garnacho that we do with, say, Sancho, and it's an interesting take on Sancho I'm going to give you as well, but we have with Rashford, that we have with the Casemiros that we want to get rid of, is they're on big money. And it's about finding a club that's willing to pay them that, or for the player to reduce their salary. You don't have that issue with Garnacho. He's on 50k a week. And I think every single club that's linked to him would pay him more than 50k a week. So you can get him out on a financial level. I also think, though, if he joins a Tottenham, I think if he joins a Villa, I think if he joins an Arsenal or a Chelsea, they're all linked. I don't know if the players at those clubs let him walk in and be Billy Big Bollocks. You all remember your first day of senior school, year 7. You go into senior school year 7 and your mindset is still of year 6, where you're the biggest, strongest kids in the school. And you walk in and then you really do. And I know you remember this. When you were like year 7 and you see those year 6s, those year 11s or year 12s, they look like men because like puberty's kicked in for them, right? And you go, shit, I ain't the big kid anymore. I think that can often happen to a player. They leave a club where they are Billy Big Bollocks. It's all, I'm the man here. I've been kicked out for it, but I'm the man. You walk into a dressing room and suddenly there's lots of people just like, I am the captain now. Sit the fuck down. And I think that will do him a world of good. I think the move in itself will be a humbling experience. I would love to talk to Rashford. It doesn't mean people are nasty to him or can't have that attitude here. I just think sometimes you move into, we've all done this in a workplace, friends group, schools, someone's house. You walk in somewhere and the vibe is just different and it can humble you in a way. Does that make sense? You know, you might go to a friend's house for a barbecue. One friend's house might be crazy. You all get smashed up, go crazy. Go to another friend's house. You're like, oh shit, I can't. You can just tell you can't do that here. Maybe it's the way the house is decorated. It's got white carpet. You're like, well, fuck, we can't mess around in here. There's cream or white carpet going on. So I don't know. I think he needs the move. We need the move. I do think he could be an asset for another club. I just don't want him to go to a Premier League club because I think he'll do well. I think he'll do really, really well in the Prem. I think he'll do well in Italy. I'm just annoyed that his preference is the Premier League. Having said that, so many clubs want him. It feels like a deal that will get done. You know, I think it will happen. But I still think Chelsea buy him. Just my gut feeling, I still think Chelsea, the rumour won't go away. Chelsea are not shutting it down.
I would love Chelsea to buy him. Because if he goes Chelsea, he ain't working there. I'm sorry.
He's just gonna drown. They've got way too much fish in that pond. Like there's no space. I'm still so confused as to what Chelsea's model or what is their target for the season, because the players they're signing doesn't look like they're trying to go and challenge for the title. Because let's have it right, Chelsea spend like they're challenging for the title every year, but the players they sign never make you think, oh, they're actually going to want to do something. We've seen just a few days ago the Mike Maynard stuff. 5 or 10 million they're hassling over. They're going to go and they've thrown about 50 million at goalkeepers in the past 2 years, and none of them are anywhere near the level of Double M. So I generally don't know what they're doing over there. They're trying to sign Bino Gittins. Yeah, Bino Gittins another good young player, but he's young. He's 20. What's he gonna do? They've had about 5 or 6 things.
Kenda coming in.
They've got Kenda, they've got Esteval, they've got all these big players that Don has been picking up for about 7-8 months. Paez, all these players, but none of them look like they've got enough minutes to share because what are they doing? I
call them Football Manager FC. They are a Football Manager save in real life, and this is why it's one of the reasons why I'm not trying to go too hard on them, because I'm really curious about how it would turn out. Because if you could do FM in real life, Man United do FM, do what they do because I want it. You know what I mean? I would love that. But if we're talking about the series, just pure football and no banter, it can be quite confusing. Yes, the idea of bringing in a young core of players, talented players from across the world together, let them grow together and potentially win the league, the Champions League, dominate England, is a very, very enticing thing to like want to happen, right? It's a great idea, but the execution is very hard, because now you look at when they were dropping off, right? Look when they're dropping off in the league during that December period. Who were the leaders in that team? Who were the players that have seen it all, who have been through hard times and is able to drag them out? They really didn't have any. And so it's going to take time. But at some point, you have to add the elements to your team that you lack, which is experience, which is leadership, which is winning mentality. Yes, they won the Conference League and I'm happy for them. But I'm pretty sure nearly any team in the Premier League this year could have won that Conference League. Let's be honest. Like the competition wasn't the strongest that it's ever been, right? So they did that, but they need players with experience in the Champions League. How many of those players got Champions League experience in that team right now? Barely any of them. You know, they need players with experience of winning league titles. They had Thiago Silva, and look at how much Thiago Silva helped them. Look how much Aspilicueta helped them to win things like the Champions League, where they shouldn't have won the Champions League, to become third and potentially challenge when they shouldn't have been doing that with the squad that they had. And that's what they need. And this is where Chelsea, they need to deviate. I'm not saying completely throw out the window, deviate from this youth football manager project and go and get man that will just move the needle, that will help them elevate them as a team, elevate their maturity, and see where you go. Because in 3 years' time, are these guys going to be experienced enough to handle winning the league without that guidance? You know, like 3 years of an experienced player who's 27 and goes on to 30 and helps them get too close to that is better than not having those 3 years with a like a 21-year-old.
They've got to get right. This year says that the Lat Esteval will improve Chelsea a lot next season. I hate to say it. They may very well do. And this is the thing. If the Lat comes in and is as good for Chelsea as he was for Ipswich, but has more opportunities to score, it could work out amazing for them. It really could. I did see a couple of Chelsea fans sharing his goals in training, and it did remind me of what. Do you remember when Anita was sharing all the Timo Werner strikes when he first joined? I was like, I went to Anita's Twitter. I was like, she shared it again. And look, they could listen. It's on paper. I understand what the criticism Chelsea are getting, which is I asked the questions last week. Do you think that they're doing the right things? I don't want Chelsea to get better as a rival, but speaking objectively, I see. It's hard for me just to go 100% doing the right thing. The reason I say that is because I think you have to be slightly led by the fans of the club. And what I see from a lot of Chelsea fans is they're a little panicky. You've got others, Ches would be an example, and David and Don that all come on. They're quite relaxed. They even though they haven't bought all the players they want yet, very early in the window, it's going to be okay. And that's fair. I see a lot online that are just fuming, angry, think the club's running like a joke. So as a rival, but also as someone who's not a Chelsea fan and a kind of neutral to the situation, although I understand what they're doing and it could work, I can't get out of my head the one question, which is, what if these young players aren't ready next season and Newcastle improve and City improve and Arsenal get better again and Liverpool maintain or go to another level? If Spurs and Man United get better and then they kind of stand a little bit still. Now, granted, you could buy 2 or 3 experienced players and they flop, because that can happen. They did it when they bought Koulibaly and Sterling. It didn't actually, Aubameyang, it didn't work for them. I'm just intrigued by what they're doing, and I want to see how it works, because there'll be some Chelsea fans that will say that we're hating. It's not about hating. I've always had a lot of support towards what clearly I can see their vision. I'll call out the mistakes they make. But equally, there's a lot of Chelsea fans that are angry. I feel I would be a little bit disingenuous to completely ignore a huge group of people that know more about their club than me, if that makes sense. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm open-minded to it, if that makes sense. Ches here says, I hear you, KJ, but last year I was hearing from the same critics we needed experience to get top 4. Some even said we won't win a trophy. So I think the plan thus far is working.
I think about levels, though, Ches. I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and people were wrong to say that, because obviously you got a trophy and you got top 4, so you can do that. But I think about levels. If you look at all the Premier League winners and Champions League winners for the last, like, let's say 5 to 10 years, right? None of them were these young squads that had no experience. Not to say no experience, because you do have experience, but don't have top level experience, you know? Like, none of them were that. And that's where I'm saying maybe Chelsea need to look into that to help them get over the line, because if the entire history of football is dictating that this is what you need to win, what makes you the exception? You know what I mean? What makes you going to be the one that's going to break that mold? Like, even that, but look at that Barcelona team. They are full of young players. They had Lewandowski, but in the end, they're mainly like young players in that team. And again, they failed to get over the line against Inter Milan team that got embarrassed by PSG. So I'm just saying that to get to that next level, not saying you can't get there on a journey with the way that you go in there, but I do feel like at some point,
yeah, I don't think anything they're linked to is going to make Chelsea go backwards next year. I think they'll be a top 4 team, a top 5 team next year, definitely. I understand the criticism from some Chelsea fans saying, well, instead of buying the lap, let's go and get Gyokeres. Instead of getting Gittins, go and get Williams or get Sane. I'm just throwing out names you've been linked to that are of a different level of experience that could push us into a title race and maybe even win it. And this here from Maximum says, Ches, we were lucky to get top 4, have some standards. We capitulated mid-season because of a lack of experience.
That's exactly it, Terry. Is last season, the aim for Chelsea was get floor raisers. We need players that lift the floor of the team so that you could got a little bit of a better squad. The depth is better. So when players are coming in, you could still push on to that top 4 level. That was your aim. And Ches, have some shame. Let's dismiss this Conference League like that wasn't an expectation that with or without the signings you were supposed to win. Let's just clarify that. But when you talk about this season, you're in top 4, you're in Champions League. So what's the aim then? It's not just to maintain top 4, because you need to go on and push that next level. Now, you may not be good enough for a title race next year because Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal might just be too good. But you need to push on and make signings to want to do that. So you now need ceiling raisers. You've done the floor raisers last year. You need ceiling raisers, people that lift how good this team actually can be on its best day. That's what happens when you sign experienced players. All these young players you're signing, there's no guaranteed or known quantity as to what they can do in the Premier League and at what level. Esteval, Puenda, all of these players, how good are they in the Premier League? None of us know. None of us will know until we actually see them play. And then when they do play, it's going to be the excuse, oh, they're young, they need to learn, they need time. Chelsea are not in a position where you want to give players time. You can, little dribs and drabs, 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game, but you need experienced players to lead you through it. So I just think the approach they've got in the market is just the wrong one at the moment.
And then you got the comment of how much experience did PSG have, but let's look at their team. They had Marquinhos, who's been there for years and has been in the Champions League final. He's won things with Brazil. They had Donnarumma. He's won the Euros. You know what I'm saying? He's already won like big things.
And Dembele's not young as well. People are like Dembele's young.
Dembele's not a young player. They had Hakimi. Hakimi's been around, bro.
Okay,
Hernandez won a Champions League.
Let's go through this, right? Let's go through this and look at the age, right? They've got kids. Marquinhos 31, Hernandez 29, You've got Fabian Ruiz is the 29-year-old midfielder. Dembele's 28. Okay, he's not a baby, right? Donnarumma 26. Okay, Hakimi 26. Vitinha's not a baby. He's 25 years old. Kvaratskhelia 24 years old. Ramos, the backup striker, 23. William Pancho, okay, came in from Frankfurt. Clearly was part of the Europa League when his team must have been. 23. Nuno Mendes, 22. Again, now you're getting towards the kid, but Nuno Mendes was still fairly experienced when he came in. Barcola, 22. João Neves is 20 and Doué is 20. And then you get into this is the youngsters, right? So these are the players that are 21 years old and younger in that squad, okay, that we've all heard of and or played regularly. Doué, Neves, Zaire Emery, and Mayulu, right? The rest of them barely played. There's 3 to 4 that are actual kids, and only one of them was a regular starter. Doué forced his way. 2 of them, you could put Doué into that space. The rest of them are 22 to 24, and then the biggest block are 25 to 31. That is not kids. Come on, let's be honest about
That's how you build a winning team.
Do you know why people think they're kids, though? Do you know why people think they're kids? Because it's only now that Vitinha's coming to his own at 25. And Vitinha is a great example when people go, nah, if a player ain't fully formed at 18, I don't want him. Football don't work like that. I mean, it's taken Dembele till he was 28 to fulfill his potential. It's taken until he was 28 years old. Fabian Ruiz, let's be honest.
I didn't realize
Nobody was talking about Fabian Ruiz 4 years ago, 5 years ago. As in, there wasn't masses going, my club's got to sign Fabian Ruiz. Players develop at different stages and at different times. And, Ched, you're right. Like, some people will move the goalposts. I thought you'd make top 4 last year. I still think you'll be a Champions League team next year. I'm just not 100% convinced so far with the players you're linked to that you're going to go to another level. Now, what could happen is the players that are already at your club go up another level with maturity. So therefore, the youngsters that are coming in are backfilling, and actually you become a better team next season. The Lap could come in. Again, this is what I would say. If the Lap comes in and scores goals regular, I think they're going to be okay. I really do, because in that block of games, they collapsed in mid-season. I'd say the first 6 or 7 games, it was because they were just missing sitters, and then they were getting caught late in the game. So we will see.
Yeah, there's a comment that came. Oh,
sorry, go on. Put the comment up. Go on.
Oh, there's it. You go. It said, "Come on, who helped them win the experience of the kids? Both of them. Without Donnarumma, they may have not even been in the final."
Dembele is a favorite to win the Ballon d'Or. Marquinhos runs the back line as an example. Fabian Ruiz is an equal part of that 3-man midfield. Okay, so the main defender, the goalkeeper, the best attacker, and part of the midfield. So 4 players there are in that block. Hakimi, the right back, Vitinha. 6 of the starting 11 are in that 25 to 31. You then have, Kvaratskhelia, and you have Pancho, who's in, and Nunes in the 22 to 24 range. That's 10 players. 10 players are not in that baby range. You've got a couple that are going to turn 23 this season. I don't consider 23-year-olds babies in the game. They're not fledglings. They're not 18, 19-year-olds with a lack of experience. The vast majority of the PSG team is mid to late 20s. It is a cast iron fact. Did I say Pancho? Sorry, I said his name wrong. Pancho, sorry. But come on now. Stop, Terry. Vitinha is the boss. Yeah, okay. But he's 25, turning 26. You're making hand point for us, my old mate. He is 25, turning 26.
Funny as well with Vitinha, yeah, because many people, especially a lot of like pure Premier League fans, go, "Oh, Vitinha was a flop though. He didn't work at Wolves." Well, look at him now. As you said, not all players they play good. They take certain years, and some players they reach their level at certain times. He came to the Premier League, didn't work. Went to PSG. Now,
this guy, man, have you seen this? Less than 24 years old, his kids. Oh, what are we doing here, man? What are we doing?
Under 21.
Even if you do less than 24, okay. So Ramos, Kvaratskhelia, Vitinha, Hakimi, Donnarumma, Dembele, Fabian Ruiz, Hernandez, Marquinhos. Come on, that's a lot of the squad. That's a lot of the first team. So the idea is the difference is this: at least 50% of that main starting lineup and some of their most important players this season are not kids. Nobody has said, not one singular person, that Chelsea or United or Arsenal shouldn't sign young players. No one has said that. This is the Football Terrace. We are not going to do what shit channels do and do this weird polarized nonsense. Only sign older players or only sign youngsters. Fuck all that wank. We're not doing it. We're not doing it here. Let's be real. Terry, 1 second form tables, 1 second black hole. Can't you wait until the transfer window is done before making I haven't made any conclusion. I've literally sat here, DJ. This is the problem, DJ. I have literally sat here and said, I'm actually in the middle. I'm completely on the fence. I see what they're doing. I don't think your signings have been bad. What I've said, DJ, is I can't ignore the massive cries from some Chelsea fans that they're really worried about the direction of this summer so far. That's quite literally what you're asking for. I'm waiting before making a conclusion. In fact, I'm not even going to make a full conclusion on Chelsea, depending on who they sign, until I start seeing the ball being kicked. Equally, I've said you'll still be a team in the top 4. So again, my friend DJ, I know what you're probably, because you're not hearing everything Chelsea are doing is amazing. I think they're going to win the league next year. This is the best transfer window I've ever seen from somebody. Because you're not hearing that level of praise. You're seeing it as a negative. But at no point did I say it was bad. The one question I'm asking is, are they buying enough to truly maintain the title race next year, which is where I think Chelsea what they should be aiming for. Right now, I don't know. That's because the laps come in. Gittins is probably going to happen. And I'm not sure who else they're going to go. Again, you add Ekitike to that as an example. You throw Gyokeres in there because you go in for him. Chelsea have got a chance of winning the league. If you don't get those players, I'll still sit on the fence and wait to see you kick a ball. But come on, there's no way I said that. And by the way, I was right about the form table. Everything I said about the form table was correct. If your performances didn't improve, which they did, you cannot lie and sit here and say your performances in those last 5 games were a representation of the previous 3 months. If you're going to sit there and say those performances as a team were the same, you're lying about your own football club. I was spot on. Your performances improved, you made it. If your performances had maintained the same level of conversion rate, same level of chances, same goals conceded, same lack of control of games, that would have all maintained, DJ. You wouldn't have made the top 4 in my personal opinion. Everything I said was spot on, nail on the head. My preseason prediction was also right that you would make the top 4. Everything I said, by and large, there's moments in games, but my overarching predictions about your club last season were spot on and accurate. Sorry, my friend, but no one was here. Like, I personally weren't slagging you off. The other boys were a little bit more critical than me, and that's their right to be. But half your fan base were equally critical of your club, my friend. He's back again, says, when it's faceless United fans on Twitter, you dismiss them. But when it's Chelsea, no, I'm talking about Simon Phillips, who isn't faceless. I'm talking about CFC Pies, who is faceless but not nameless and does spaces, and is one of the biggest Chelsea platforms in the world. I'm talking about the likes of George Benson. I'm talking about massive Chelsea content creators. Again, not faceless accounts with 2 followers. Big Chelsea accounts. You can go out there and you can read their tweets. You can go out there and read their articles. You can go out there and see what they're saying. Go read the replies of Ben Jacobs' tweet about the player Kennedy or whatever his name is you've taken to the World Club Cup. Go and read the Chelsea fans who are not nameless and faceless. Huge accounts with massive followings. Come on, DJ. Be honest with us here. I'm not even slagging your club off. I'm asking opinions based on what other fans are saying. Don't sit here. I love you. I respect the super chats, but you're stronger than this, mate. You are genuinely. I mean, Johnny Minerals is definitely slagging it off. Is Johnny? Whether you agree with Johnny Minerals or not, is he nameless and faceless, DJ? Don't lie. Don't lie. The problem is with the debate, I don't care about what trolls say. Once you start lying in a debate, you've lost. It doesn't matter how. You could even be right, but once you've lied to back your point up, you lose the debate for me. Come on, my friend. Let's not be disingenuous here. What striker do you think United will get? Fuck knows. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Genuinely, no idea who we'll get. Strand Larson, why is no one talking about him?
I think it's because it's his first season that he did it. Mateta is a bit different because he's done it 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
So I think if he does another 14-goal season, I think you hear more about him.
I agree. It's also clear Arsenal is holding up the transfer market, striker market. Yeah, they are. You know, a fair play to them. They don't need to speed it up, but they are holding it up. There's no doubt. If Arsenal don't get a left winger, will they get both?
No,
Maybe.
I don't think they will.
There's no suggestion. Again, I'm not. Once I see it from some credit, like if a couple of the Arsenal in the nose, Fabrizio and Jacob say there's now talk that they might buy both, then I'll start to believe that. Until then, I'm not saying it won't happen, but there's no talk about it. I
don't see the players being intrigued by a move to compete with each other. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, if you do buy two strikers, I don't think it would be a Sesko and a Gyokeres. It would have to be one of those, and then someone like a Larson. You know, you could probably sign someone like Larson and Gyokeres and have two similar type strikers, one better than the other. I just don't think. I just think once you sign one, if you say you sign Sesko today and then you went Gyokeres, we want you as well, it might change his mind. It might not, but at the end of the day, gone are the days where you play with two strikers at a time, so you can have 3 to 4 on your bench. Every one plays with one lone striker. How many squads actually have more than 2 out and out number 9s of a decent quality? I can't even think of how many squads actually have that.
Probably teams lower down, but I couldn't name.
I'm pretty sure Wolves with Strand Larson and Cunha had like the best 2. Like in the
and they played together most of the time as well. It wasn't even
like City don't have it. Liverpool haven't got it. Well, they've got 2. They've got Darwin Núñez and you've got Jossa. But the irony is, the fans are both upgraded on, right? Yeah. So they're not even got someone that's like good enough for them in their fans' eyes.
Wilson, which is
Brighton, Inter Milan with Lautaro,
they play with 2 strikers.
But they play together though, don't they? You know, Isak and Wilson. So again, more than 2. More than 2. How many have more than 2 of, say, Isak and Wilson level? Like Wilson being the worst you can be, and then someone better. How many big clubs in Europe have more than 2? Genuine question. I don't know the answer. I'm not saying they don't exist. Again, interplay with 2 strikers. Wrong example. Atletico, Alvarez, how do you pronounce that guy's name?
Sorloth.
That's it.
Again, they play with 2? They play with 2 strikers. No? They play 4-4-2.
They start with 2 strikers. So, or they start with at least 2 of these 3. But yeah, that's a good example. So 1. So this is the point. PSG maybe. Well, they've got 1 out and out number 9 as far as I know, and Ramos. Who else have they got?
Yeah.
I don't know if they. Who else have they got?
Number 9. It's not striker. It's one of those ones.
Yeah, it's not common for teams who play with 1 striker.
So
have 3 or 4 options. Like it's just
it's one of those things for me where I still think what Arsenal will do is Kai Havertz will end up being the backup striker, and then you've got a third backup in Moreno. I think they'll be happy with that, but that's just my opinion. Look, people, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We are back later at 5 p.m. UK time. Plus tonight we're doing a watch along for Chelsea versus. I don't know who they're playing in the World Club Cup. I'll be on That's Football for that. So join us over there for that. Boys, thank you both for joining me. I want to shout out Jamie and Alice starting the show with us as well. Viewers, if you can hit the like button, if you can make sure you are subscribing to the Terrace, that would be amazing. This is going to redirect you to Footy Judge Mo's show. He's live at 2:00. So go over there and bookmark it and go and support my brother over there. Let everyone know, Jaws, where they can find you, bro, your channel.
Yeah, man. Do-Rag Diaries. I'm doing a lot more content on more all-round football, not just Tottenham no more. So if you want to come and join me, keep up to date with all transfer stuff like you do over here.
I feel like you're stealing my flow there, bro. What's going on?
Yeah, man. I've been saying Liverpool, man. We're gonna start doing Liverpool scary videos, man. I'm just saying.
I tell you, they're moving. They're moving mad. They're moving mad. I tell you. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless, and I'll see you all again soon. Peace.